Welcome to Career Elevation, where we make hiring easy.
We're two former dental nerds turned recruiters who've seen the good, the bad, and the you will not believe this stories.
If you're ready for better hiring, better teams, and better vibes,
You're in the right place. Let's elevate your dental world and have a little fun while we do it together.
beautiful. So today, let's talk about the big guns. We're going to talk about how much hiring is going to cost you by hiring the wrong person in more ways than just money. So, you want to start? Should we?
Yeah,
Should we?
if you were in here for our last podcast and watched till the end, Wendy gave a couple of these answers away. I had to stop her. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And basically, my first question that I kind of want to talk with Wendy about because she is the money guru. She knows the numbers a bit more than me. I'm the people person of Career Elevation, more or less. So, how much money do you feel like a bad hire actually costs a dental practice beyond just the payroll portion? Because we know it's going to cost obviously for their hourly wage, but there's so much more that goes into it than that.
Yeah, there sure is. So statistics say anywhere between like 30, I always say 30% because I hear 30% more, but some other statistics say up to like 50 and 60% of the person who is leaving or you have to replace, that 30% of their annual wage. Annual wage. So this is tens of thousands of dollars. This is so much money, but not just the money alone, because you're also having to take the time for the interviewing process. That's your time as the dentist, as the manager, as the leader or the leadership of this office, it's also going to be a lot of stress on the patients, the other team members, whoever's doing the onboarding and the training, even the patients. Like the patients are paying attention to who's in the office, and if they see a different face every single time that they come, if that's in the front, if that's in the back, if that's like they never get the same hygienist or they never talk to the same receptionist or never have the same dental assistant, that's terrible. People don't want to stay in situations like that.
No, I want to know who I'm going to see at the dentist office too. I want to get to know you as a friend. I want to know the assistant and the hygienist.
Yeah. I got a text last time I got my teeth cleaned and it said you were going to be meeting with this person. And I texted and I was like, but what happened to Kelly? I know Kelly's still there. Like she's a personal friend of mine. And I was like, what happened? What did somebody accidentally flip-flop me? And they were like, Wendy, we got this. We're going to take care of it. We're going to put you back in Kelly's. And I was like, if you need to move my appointment, that's totally fine. I'll find another date. Like I'm pretty flexible overall. And they were like, no, we've got it. So I don't know what they did, but I was so appreciative because I love Kelly. She's been my hygienist for like 10 years. She's fantastic. I
She
love it.
built that rapport with you, which, is something I look for when I talk to candidates. Do you build that
Yeah.
relationship and that rapport with your patients? Because you're not just their hygienist. Honestly, as an assistant, I always felt like I was a therapist too. Like, I'm listening to their life and giving, suggestions on things if they have questions or, they're giving me suggestions. I was pregnant for a lot of the time when I was a dental assistant actively. So they were always talking to me about baby names and all kind of things. I just built that friendship with them and it made it fun for them to come into the office.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And honestly, it's like the dental office is one of the highest anxiety places to be in. If you get the same person that you know you had a good experience with last time, you're automatically your nerves are going to just completely like diminish. Maybe not 100% because nobody really enjoys going to the dentist except for some cuckoo cuckoos, but we want to feel a little bit more comfortable. And if we get the same people working with us, like as our hygienist, as our assistant, we're going to do so much better, not only for that one appointment, but it like psychologically in our brain, something switches and we just do better. Like I used to be terrified of going to the dentist and like doing anything and everything. And now I'm like, okay, I know what's going to happen. Like I'm much more chill. I know this assistant is going to have my back. I know the assistant is going to say something if something's going on. And like you just have so much better of a time when you have the same team members that you get to see at the office all the time.
I also think, just being former, I almost did at that time. Apparently I can't say the word former. So anyway, blooper flipper here. Being two former dental nerds is like, you know what's going to happen at the dental office. Like you said, you kind of know the steps of what's happening in your mouth. And that's always funny to me now. If I have to have work done, it's like, I know what's happening instantly. Whereas before I was so oblivious and just kind of looking around confused. So that's interesting. I know when I took my daughter to the dentist the other week for her to get x-rays and the x-ray popped up on the screen, I instantly knew what they were going to tell me. And which was helpful for me, because if I didn't know anything about dentistry, it would have been very overwhelming. It was still overwhelming for me as a mom because I felt bad about certain things, but I knew what was coming before he said it. So I was like, okay, we're going to get through this. So I do think, even the educating, not just building that relationship, like educating your patients on what's going to happen next, is more comforting too, because it is a lot of anxious people coming in the dental office. I'm not really one of those anxious people in the dental office, probably because I've worked in it now for so long and been there, and I put that on my kids now too, so they like it. But I'm more anxious going to the doctor. I don't like going to the doctor. If I have to go get blood work and stuff done, I'm like, who knows what that's going to say? I don't want to know.
Oh yeah. No, I totally get that. Totally get that.
But speaking on building relationships, I feel like that also goes into with the team and building that relationship with your team members too. So how does one wrong hire, affect the team morale and the culture and the retention in an office? Because I think that is where a lot of people struggle.
Yeah. So a bad fit of a team member, just a butt in a seat. And if you know me, you know that I hate the word just. If you get a butt in a seat and they are just a position to you as the business owner because you don't care about them, this also makes a huge difference, right? So a bad fit can lead to other team members leaving if you don't handle it really quickly. So my motto, I may have said this in every episode so far, but it's very important. I want to drill it into people's brains, right? So hire slow, not slow communication, but hire slow, fire fast, and slightly overstaff and cross train. Because if you are able to slightly overstaff and cross train, if you have the practice size big enough, or if you can get some like high school kid or some college kid to give you a few hours, that's also going to be super helpful. That will help with burnout. Everybody in dentistry right now is talking about burnout, and I know that it's been a hot topic for the last several years, but it is so true. And I think that sometimes we're trying to, as business owners, we're trying to look at the bottom line of how much is our payroll, how much is our overhead. But truthfully, if you don't have the good and the right team members in the practice, you're going to end up paying so much more in every single way instead of having team members that are all good and cohesive together.
I know you and I talk about this a lot when we see offices who have, even if you're just a one doctor office, I still think you should have two assistants, or at least an assistant and a sterilization tech. I've been in an office where I was the only assistant before, with two doctors, which utterly insane. Have no idea how that even worked. I went home and cried most days to my husband. So there was that. That was pre-kids. Imagine a mom with kids at home and being the only assistant in office. It's exhausting. The burnout there, astronomical. You need to have two people in the back. Somebody needs, or at least a front desk who can float and knows how to do something, because as a DA, you can't be the only person back there doing sterilization, doing lab work, sending, referrals, all these things that you're having to handling stocking, making sure things aren't expired, and then still expected to be, top tier employee. That's where the burnout happens. That's where the person's like, I can't do this anymore. I need to leave the practice. I need to find somewhere that appreciates me.
And I think that there's a lot of things that get missed when you have too few team members, when you're not slightly overstaffed. I saw a video yesterday of a hygienist that went into an office. Maybe she was an assistant actually, and she was assisting, and she needed to change the water before a crown prep, and there was just like 2 inches of water in the bottle in the reservoir, and she took it off and was like, what is going on here? Because at first she couldn't take the water bottle off, and then when she got it off, there was mold all in the inside and all through the straw. And she tried to approach the assistant, and the assistant said, it's just, I don't know, it's an oversight. She approached the doctor, and the doctor said, yeah, we must have just missed this. And she's like, this is not just a miss. This is months of missing, maybe even years. You cannot and should not see patients until you get new lines because it's not just the water line. It's now through the whole line. And she said that the section and like the water line was so hard to like, actually use and function. That thing was so stiff. I assume that somehow mold does something with that kind of plasticky, rubbery stuff for the suction line. I
You
don't know.
got
It
to
was
think the
absolutely
blood and
disgusting.
the, other particles that are turned into mold. It wasn't just the water. Like,
Yeah. And it's like, man, if there's that bad of an oversight, imagine all of the other things. And she made such good points. In the beginning of her video, I was like, "Girl, why are you so sassy?" And then she like tells the rest of the story and I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
that's where a
Imagine,
checklist of things that need to be done
yes.
daily, weekly, and monthly are so important. It needs to be signed off on
Yeah.
to have that
And
record.
yeah, and somebody's paying attention. So not just like the assistant keeping track of it, but also somebody else making sure, hey, you're actually completing this right. Like, let me take a look at it every month. I'll keep this document. I'll make sure that, I don't know, you get a bonus because you hit all of them. I don't know, whatever you want. But there's so many things that could really be a negative effect. And imagine how many implants and crown preps that were done or like pulpotomies or root canals that were done and you're trying to like I'm sure that they probably didn't have saline solution or anything that they were doing 100% properly. They were
They
probably
must not have
just
been shocking the lines at
no,
all.
clearly they weren't. It was it was quite disgusting. But okay, anyways, so going back to the original question, some like warning signs that was that it? No, it wasn't. A wrong hiring it can affect the team morale and culture and retention. That's just like one person that is neglectful, I think is incredibly important to be aware of and start to try to find a new person. As soon as you find out that they're neglectful, find a sub that's in your area that's willing to work with you until you can find a replacement. If that's a few weeks, a few days, a few months, whatever that is, find somebody who you can get that person who's being neglectful, get them out of there. Because if they're being neglectful on water lines like that or sterilization of any kind, OSHA, HIPAA, any of the following, I think you're going to be so much better getting them out of there
I agree.
than keeping them.
Definitely. When I worked on the military base, they were very adamant on the shocking the lines. Like if we had to write dates on our water bottles and you could only keep that water in there, I think it was 6 days. And if it hit the seventh day and you hadn't changed it and flushed your line, shocked the system, everything, they would shut your room down. It was shut down until the like health maintenance people could come in there, recheck over everything, make sure that lines didn't need to be changed out and that we could shock the system, put new water, put the tablets in and get it going, which, sucked when that happened because a room would be down if, there were so many people that worked there with civilians, military, I mean, everybody. So somebody may have dropped the ball every once in a while and it would suck because that room would be down. But I was grateful that at least that these military members are being taken care of in the proper way. We're not putting mold in their mouth when we spray water in there to rinse something off.
That's so disgusting. Okay, let's change the subject to not like just imagining mold water being sprayed in my mouth is just absolutely dreadful. Okay, so what warning signs do most offices miss during the interview process, do you think?
Oh, there's a lot. I feel like sometimes I have people who overtalk. There's a fine line, and I know we discussed this in, I think it was our first podcast. You want to talk the right amount. You don't want to
Mm.
put filler words in 24/7 and you're just babbling. Obviously, on this podcast, me and Wendy are kind of babbling back and forth, but that's what a
My
podcast is.
bad.
It's not a job interview. Okay. A job interview is I want you to show your skills to me, line them out, tell me what you can, and honestly, tell me what you can't do. Tell me what you're uncomfortable doing. I need to know that too. So being very good at communication and just having that standard conversation and not overdoing it, because now I feel like you're just trying to make yourself sound a lot better than maybe you really are.
Right.
And I've had that happen. Or this took a while for me to learn as a recruiter, and Wendy's gonna laugh. When you have somebody that's maybe overly nice or overly complimenting you and like constantly messaging like, thank you so much, like you're wonderful, you're amazing, that's great. And I love to hear, and I try to be that for everybody. And it's great to hear. But when it's like love bombing you, there's like
Mm-hmm.
5 text messages in a row about how great you are, and then the next week there's a whole nother five. Like now I feel like you're just, putting shit up my butt. Like, you're just trying to make me feel better so that I think you're amazing. And 9 times out of 10, that's not worked out well for the candidates. I had a candidate that did get the wool over my eyes and ended up being a crazy person. Let's just say
I
that.
was just thinking about that person, the one in the U-Haul in California.
Yes,
Is that
lived in
the one?
mansions.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no. There was another one in California. I don't know what it is with Californians, but love
Yes,
you
it was
guys,
two.
but also
The U-Haul was before me, and then the one I'm talking about is the one that
yeah.
said they were living in Airbnbs. I don't know.
Yes, yes, yes. So, and for both of those situations, it seemed like they were wonderful. It seemed like they were going to be a great fit. And I'm glad that we have everything documented on our side, which is why we say to have like a standard list of questions that you're asking each candidate, and you're keeping track of the answers. If that's when they're sitting there in front of you, if that is AI recording your conversation when you're in like a Zoom interview, or if you after they leave, you're writing questions down, because the person you're talking about gave you answers. I think I talked to him too, if I remember correctly. I talked to him and you talked to him. Then there was a coach that we were working with that talked to him, and then the doctor
Doctors.
talked to him. And it was different answers for every single person. And because we had our information documented and recorded on the Zoom, we caught that. And so sharing information from one person interviewing or talking with a candidate to another person, don't just say, yeah, that candidate was good and be done with it. Share why. Why did you like this person? Why didn't you like this person? What was an interesting answer that they had given you? An interesting fact about this candidate. This dude I that we're talking about, he had a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. And I think if you're trying to like pull the wool over somebody's eyes, maybe don't be so interesting, because we're gonna talk
Stand out
about you.
that
We're gonna
much.
say what?
Don't stand out that much.
Yeah, yeah, like be nice. I mean, we're not trying to like have you as the listener pull the wool over somebody's eyes, but just be hyper aware. Like if there's something that's weird, say something, because it's incredibly important that everybody knows what's happening, what's going on, and you guys are communicating with each other throughout the interview process.
Yeah, especially if you're working with a recruiter, like communicating with the recruiter, communicating with the doctors they're meeting with, because there's so many different steps in certain scenarios, depending on the type of position that they are applying for. Just that constant communication. I feel like that is just like the key word that I need to put in everything when it comes to hiring somebody is communication. I need to plaster that on billboards across the world in general, actually, not even just in hiring, in general of us as people. If we could just communicate a little better,
Yeah.
things would be a lot easier.
Absolutely. And, I wanted to add something into this too, like kind of a warning sign. Be curious for like to answer the question or whatever, like a warning sign that most offices miss is to be curious. I think there are so many people that they're like, well, I don't have enough time to do the interview to be as curious as I want to be. I say schedule the time. Make your patients wait a little bit. Ask your assistant to bring your patient back and get them started on something. Walk away, tell your candidate, I'm going to be back in 3 minutes after I anesthetize or whatever, and finish your conversation. Be curious, for the love of God. Good Lord. Figure out, because you're going to spend 40 hours a week with this person. Do you actually want to work with this person? Are they a bit of a lunatic? Can you figure that out before you hire them?
I hope so.
Right? Be curious, my friends.
Wendy's motto in life: ask all the questions, appropriate questions, as we mentioned.
Appropriate, yes.
Okay, well, how do you feel like practices can prevent bad hires? Building stronger teams moving forward from this conversation.
Yeah. One thing that I like to do, besides all of the things that we've already talked about, I'm not going to reiterate that, because listen to the whole portion of the podcast, and most of the answers are in that. But either working interviews or skills assessment. I don't think people always understand the difference between the two. And a working interview is you're going to get paid for your services because a patient is going to pay you for whatever work as you as a dental assistant, you as a hygienist, you as a receptionist who's answering the phone. If you are making the business money, that is a working interview. A skills assessment is you practicing on a team member that's not going to pay the office for doing that cleaning or doing that filling or whatever. You can practice and do a skills assessment by answering a fake phone call, like your phones, right? um, we can figure out ways around it. Like, how do you mix the cement? How do you mix the alginate? How do you make clear retainers? How do you fabricate a crown? You can do all of that for a skills assessment without a patient being in front of you. You can do that work on another team member and make sure that they're a friendly team member because otherwise you're just going to make the person angry. And if you're doing an alginate, who does alginates anymore? But like you're going to gag them. You know what I mean? So you can also hire recruiters that are curious, that have the time, that ask the questions, and that do it for you. And, another thing that's really helpful is running background checks, education verification, which I'm so thankful that we haven't had any issues of why we need to do education verification, but I've seen so many people getting in trouble for having like illegal whitening, like teeth whitening on Instagram or veneer techs, which that's not even a thing. So figuring out if what they're doing is actually legitimate, that's also going to save you a lot of time in the long run. It feels a little cumbersome because you're like, oh no, I trust this person, blah blah blah. Do the background check. You don't know who's a psycho.
Well, and the education verification, just like verifying their license are still up to date and don't have anywhere marks on them. A lot of times you see somebody's been to dental hygiene school and it says it on the resume that they're licensed. If you don't double check it, they could be lying to you. They could have remarks saying that it's been removed and that's been, re-added, all kind of things that you can just easily look up for free on your state's,
Yeah.
license and dental board. And I know that we haven't had any major issues, but I have had candidates apply to jobs that, like, I've had candidates apply to dental hygiene positions that have never even worked in dental before. And they're like, well, I don't understand why I can't do this. Um, it's a
Oh,
college degree and you have to go take a test for it. That's why you can't just
yeah.
go in there and take a scaler to somebody's gum tissue. You will ruin them.
Yeah. Uh, you can't just train me on the job to be an associate dentist. Why not?
Wouldn't that be a very odd world to live in? I would never go to the dentist. I'd be like, never mind.
Yeah. No, in every country, well, all the countries that I've had interviews with from the schooling is quite extensive. But yeah, it's quite interesting when candidates apply for an associate dentist position and they are not nor have ever gone to school in any kind of capacity, which I think is quite interesting. But there's reasons behind why that happens. If you're getting a lot of candidates that are applying and you don't have and if to a position and you need to have a degree or a license or something like that, there's different things on Indeed or your job ad or wherever you're posting your job. There's different things that you can like have check boxes. The whole system is an algorithm, so if you're doing something wrong or you're getting a lot of wrong candidates, then something is happening in the algorithm that is showing your job to the wrong people. And that's like we're dental nerds, but also like I kind of get jazzed about figuring out why people's jobs are not like why they're not being able to hire the right person.
Yeah.
um I don't know why that's an interesting thing that I like in my brain to like unravel the situation. I should be a PI. My next life I'll be a PI.
We'll just start another side business for that. So if you need private investigation, let us know.
There
I'd
you
say
go.
we're pretty good at it. So,
We kind of are already.
I actually, that endo office that I worked at that one time, I had somebody tell me that the assistant that was training me there left. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so then I was like, do you know why? And they ended up telling me why. I won't say that on here, but
Mm.
it makes sense. It makes sense. And so I just had to get a little curious on why to see if it, evened out to what I was thinking as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as recruiters good recruiters, I might add, because there's recruiters that don't really care what they do, but we really care about the people that we have connections with. And I think it's important to note when you're doing the interviewing process to be curious. And like the title of this podcast, the true cost of a bad hire in a dental office is, not taking enough time when you're talking to candidates. And the more curious you are, not looking on social media because that is illegal, but the more curious you can be, the more you can figure out about this person, the more quality conversations that you can have with them, the better off you're going to be in the long run, trying to figure out if this person is going to be the best mesh with your practice and with you. Um, I think that's kind of a good wrap. What do you think? You got
Yeah.
anything else to add?
No, I definitely agree. I know that was one thing that you always told me is be curious, and I feel like I've just instilled that in my regular life too. Now I ask so
Good.
many questions to people, or I swear my husband probably thinks I'm crazy. Randomly, I'll just be like, "What do you think polar bears do XYZ when they're stuck under the ocean frozen water?" And he's like, "Why are you asking that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I saw a video of a polar bear, and it just made me wonder what they do on a daily basis." And so just instill that in your whole life because you might learn something you don't need to know, but maybe it's a cool fact to have.
Do you want to know a useless fact about a polar bear?
I do.
Okay. I read, which I haven't verified. So if you, as a listener, you're going to take this, maybe you should verify it first. And I don't have time to verify it right now because this is a not prompted. But if you eat a whole polar bear liver, you will die from too much vitamin C.
Oh,
Too much
hmm.
vitamin C consumption. You could also, if you, this is a thing that's real for sure. Vitamin C in too high of quantities, you can Google the amount, but in too high of quantities can make you like high.
Wow.
Too much of anything is not a good thing,
That
or
no,
could not be a good thing. So.
just like money. We all think if we had all the money in the world, we would be much better off, but probably really not.
Yeah, those people are the way they are sometimes because they get a little jaded by people.
Yeah.
Um, Money is great, but it definitely does not solve every single problem in this world. But okay, okay, okay. All right, friends, that's a wrap. If today's episode gave you a little laugh, maybe a tip about a polar bear you weren't expecting, or a little sanity, hit the follow. And then also share this with somebody else in dentistry who might need a little tiny miracle or, some help in their hiring life.
We've got stories, obviously, maybe some random ones, but I think they're fun. Strategy, all the tips that we give, and some sass because who doesn't love that coming your way.
All right. Until next time, stay elevated.